Hey guys, in this lecture, I will show you how to combine components to make the app easier to maintain. This approach will allow you to update and change your components without affecting the rest of the page. And that's what is the mantra of React. You update only what is needed and you do not touch everything else that is rendered correctly. So the first thing that we will see is we will create a stateless example where we'll create two components and we'll try to put it in the app component. So let's try to do that. So first let's create a smaller component which is called as a header, and the way we create the header, so let's move this export to the bottom and let's say class header extends component. Let's go down, and again every component will have a render method, so let's just do the render, open close, then do a return. Every component should have a return, so you're set with the skeleton. Now let's copy this and paste this, and let's make this header as a content, so we can move the content into this. Now if you can see, this seems pretty much the header and this seems the content. So let's try to move this into a header and the content tag. So this is the div that we have in the header. Let me move that here, cut it, and I move it down here, paste it. Okay, similarly for the content, I'll just copy this and paste it here. Don't worry about the error. Let's just do this and we should be fine. And now once we have done this, we have header and the content components created, and that's why you see the page blank with only the class name app. So let's try to use the header component here, header, and let's save it, and you should start seeing the header component coming up. Saw that? Very simple. It's basically, if you consider this is like a code snippet that we used in Eclipse back in the days, where you have a snippet prepared, all you have to do is type a command and the snippet will pop up. Something similar. So it's basically you write once and use multiple times. Let's use the content also, save it, and you should start seeing the content out here. And voila. So you created your first set of components, which was the header and the content, and these are stateless components. Yes. Now how do we make it stateful? Well, we can make it stateful by passing this data. So how we make it stateful? Let's see. So every component can also have something called as a constructor. This is where you initialize anything that you need, and the moment you type in, the defaults come up. Now the props are nothing but the properties. We will talk about it in the future lecture, but constructor always calls the super method. So you just pass in the properties and you call super props. And then you see there's a this state, which is an empty object. This state is an empty object because it holds the state, and for now your component has no state in it. Let's say header text, and let's say the header text is welcome to React. I think that's what we see here. Then let's comma content text. Let's say we want to do, in this lecture we will do the component. Okay, so this is our state object. Now I can use this state very well to display the data. So let me just move this into a comment. And how will I do that? I'll put in the brackets around them. I'll put the multi-line comment, and I'll close the multi-line comment. So this will not impact and the page should become blank. Now that the page has become blank, I can just type in h1, and then let's close the h1. Now let's use the state. So the way we use a variable is using the brackets. Now if you need to use the state, you've set everything into this dot state. So in your component, this is the component. So you use the same thing, which is this dot state, and the next thing this state, and the next thing is the header text, which is the child node for it. You do header text, header text. Let's save it, and you should start seeing the header text in h1 displayed here. Welcome to React. Similarly, if you want to see how the content works, you will do content text. So let's just copy this, paste it, copy content text, and we should be ready. And the page refreshes and you see the content. So that's how you maintain a state. Consider state as more of the point in time value of things, so that ways you can relate to it. Now how does this work? Well, let's see something very nice out here. So let me open your index.js. Now let me just see what we are doing here. So if you see, we had something called as an export. And I don't know if you know about it, but you can export modules and functions from your JavaScript files. From this one, we are exporting default as app, which means the moment I do something like import app, the way we did React app, we should be able to get app class, which is this class. Now in index.js, what we are doing is we are importing app. Now once we import the app, we display the app, and you display the app as a React component using React DOM.render. And this is what React DOM provides. If you see, React DOM is again another library that we added. So React DOM.render, and then you pass in the component, and then you pass the element where you want to put in. So it's the HTML element that you will place it on, and it's called root. Now, where is the root? Well, it's in the index.file. So let me just, okay. So in index.file, you see that we have title React app. Of course, that's easy. And in the body, we just have a div which is called ID root. Now, this HTML template, when you pass in index.js, so if you see when you call root, what React will do is React DOM will read your entire web page, the whole DOM structure. It will get the element by ID of a root and then replace its content with app. And what does app do? App renders this class, which is this div and this data. Now when app renders this, if it has any child classes, it will invoke those child classes and display the HTML from those child classes into the app. So now you can see the whole structure and the hierarchy. Well, that's nice. So that was our stateless example for the components. Let's try to do something which is stateful. So we don't need this any longer. Let me just comment this out and let's go back to our header and the content components. Okay, so this should be fine. Let me close this and we should be good with this. So my header is brought back to life and I'm keeping those commented for you so that you can refer to it when you want to. Now I have my header and the content. Now I can also create a child node for this content where, let me try and do an example. I will create a constructor on this one. So now I have the constructor. In this constructor, I will create a data, and data can be nothing but let's assume a set of entries or an array for a person or persons, I would say. So it's an array, and the first element we will try to put in, and then let's try to give the keys, which is ID equals 1. Then let's try to give it a name. Let's call foo. Yeah, I don't know why we use foo bar all the time. I always wondered when I started learning why we use foo and bar. And till date, I haven't got that answer. So if anyone knows that answer, please let me know in the comments or Q&A section. And then age as, let's say 30. I don't put a comma at the end. Make sure you do that too. Comma, and then let's copy this. So we have the second person and the third person. Let's try to give second person a different ID. Let's call this a bar. Let's give the age as 20, and let's call this as bath. I don't know, whatever that is. 35, and let's make the ID 3. Let's save it. So we have a state and we can see data in it. When we go into the content part of it, where in this lecture, let's try to display this in a tabular format. So the way we can do it is we can have a table. We can have a table. We can have a header. We can have a body. th, td, id, td. Let me copy this, and we have name and age. Name, age. Now in the body we are not displaying anything yet, but we can display the data. Now it will make sense to have the whole table row as a separate component versus displaying everything one by one. So what we can do is, let's go ahead and create a table row for this, another class. Let me just copy the header so that we have the class structure ready. I have the table row component. Now in this component, what I can do is I can render the whole tr tag. So let's just remove this. Let's put tr out here and tr out here. Now td is very simple. Okay, so the way we do the row is, now that we have the whole data, we have to iterate through the data and display in a row. So how we do it is, we go this dot data, this dot state dot data, where I have the data. Now I can use the map, and then in that I can pass in the parameters as person comma I. Now that being said, I'll use the ECMAScript 2015 where I'll use the arrow function, and in the arrow function I'll call table row. When I call table row, I will pass in a key. So for any component that you display in an array in React, you need to make sure you have a unique key. Usually it's the iterator, because every array you will, whenever you loop through an array, you will have an iterator or an index key. So you can pass that as a key to it. The next thing we will do is we will pass data. Now data person. Okay. Now just make sure you do not leave any space between them, because space is not allowed. Let me just close this table row tag so that it's error free. Now when I have this data, the way I can access this table rows data is using props, which means this component is called with a property. Just like in HTML you have attributes that you pass in as a prop. Let's say for an image tag you have a source is equal to something. Similarly you say data is equal to something, and the way you access it is you say this dot props dot data dot id. Let's save it, and you should start seeing the id out there. Let me write the name and the age. So once I do that, you should be able to see all that data. Of course you can add some formatting and style sheets to it so that it looks neater, but this example shows you how you can use state and properties in a component to pass in data. I'll see you in the next class.